Hello everybody and welcome back. I had a lot of things planned for this video actually, but I realized that I have so much stuff to show you from my little trip to Poland that you're just gonna have to wait to find out where I am currently until the next video. So we're just gonna get straight into it. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Many of you know that I like to plan things very far in advance, and spontaneity scares me a lot. My one goal for my time in Denmark was to make the most of my time being in Europe, not letting my studies and work commitments tie me down like they do back home. I don't love the touristy things either. I like learning how to live like a local wherever I go. So, I was beyond proud of myself when I booked a trip to Poznan in Poland with only 5 days' notice. Not only was the trip spontaneous, but I've never even heard of the city before. I picked the perfect time to leave Aarhus. It was absolutely bucketing down and the weather was shocking, so I was pretty excited to go somewhere where the sun was shining. By the time I checked into the hostel for the night, I was knackered and went straight to bed. I was up by 6 AM the next morning, ready to take on the day. So most of the things in town don't open till about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, so I obviously have to make the most of my one day in Poland. So I was up probably 6 o'clock this morning and it's now 7:30. I'm walking through a park, which is apparently a big attraction, but I'm trying to find the cool parts of the park. I didn't exactly find anything too impressive. There was a large war memorial which was very peaceful and well kept, but probably not somewhere I'd want to spend too much time. This was probably the first time out of about 50 I walked past this building. I think it was an old church which has now been turned into a theatre. This was at about 9 or 10 in the morning in the city centre, which is called Market Square. The sun was out, but it felt like a ghost town. The only movements were traders getting ready and it was almost silent. I continued my journey to look for a bit of life and found this old ballet school. I'm not sure if they still run classes in here, and if they do, what happens when it's wet. Next, I went to Farah Church. This was actually on my extras list, not something I necessarily felt like I had to see, but I would definitely recommend it. I couldn't find the entrance at first. This was the back of the parish and it looked like some rooms had been turned into council offices. I walked straight past the front at first, but I retraced my steps. I'm so glad I went in. This Baroque style church was stunning on the inside. For weeks now, I've been craving a really good hot chocolate. In Google Maps, I found best hot chocolate in Poland. When I told Dad, he laughed, asking how many other hot chocolate places in Poland claim themselves as the best. So I had to try it out. It had this cool little basement area, which I had all to myself, and decided to have a sweet feast while I was there. Hot chocolate review time. This was literally the best hot chocolate I've ever had in my life. Many thumbs up. So this is probably the biggest and strangest tourist attraction here in Poznan. For the past 465 years, 2 goats have been bumping heads at 12 o'clock every day. They're actually quite small. I'll give you a close-up very shortly. There have been a few restorations since the 16th century, but the most recent one was over 100 years ago in 1913. I don't know what I found more entertaining, the actual head bumping or all the gasps and cheers as the bells went off and the goats came out. I'll just let the spectacle play out a bit for you, and if you look closely, you may be able to see just how long this goes for. It took about 5 minutes for the goats to actually come out and do their thing. Okay, I think I've decided now. The best part was watching just how fascinated every single person was. Look at all those phones and cameras. And finally, the round of applause. was a lot more hustle and bustle in the centre after 12 compared to just a few hours earlier. Mountain goats were then ticked off the list. Now to the next one, Poznan Cathedral. I was pretty bummed that when I went to the door I realised it was closed. It certainly made me appreciate the interior of Farah Church a lot more because of it. I enjoyed my walk around it and it was quite big. The cathedral is on its own little island, so across the bridge I went to get to the other side of the city. One of the so-called tourist attractions in Poznan is apparently the street art. It was cool, but I found that the shadows weren't doing me justice. This one was pretty cool. If you're standing in a certain position, the painted houses actually look real. One of the things I was most excited about was Lake Malta, which is just a short walk from the city. Surrounded by churches and parklands, this is the biggest man-made lake in the city, which is known for its kayak and rowing events, as well as state-of-the-art water skiing facility. Now, I love everything about Malta and I love everything to do with trains, so the train from one side of Lake Malta to the other was probably the most exciting thing I did on my trip. You may not understand my joy, and it's hard to describe, but I smiled for the duration of the 20-minute train ride. So much so my cheeks hurt from smiling. At the other end of the lake where the train stopped is a zoo. I didn't go into the zoo, but I did take a walk around the forest area, which was beautiful. Google Maps has been sending me some strange places while I've been here. I've expected it to take me down like proper trails. These are not proper trails. I finally found something that looked like a trail. Another favourite from my trip was something I didn't expect to see or do. Not far from the city or the train from Lake Malta is this forest which feels like it's in the middle of nowhere. This bridge looked fairly new, there were even people working on it when I walked across. It took me about 5 minutes to get from one side to the other, so it's pretty big. I loved feeling like I was among the treetops and watching deer and people walk around down the bottom. As a shorty, I was also so excited about having to duck under this random pipe. Food stop! One of the national dishes in Poland is pierogi. These are like little dumplings where you can get all different types of fillings. Poznan is well known for their museums with more than 20 different exhibitions and specialties. While I'm not super keen on museums, especially when the weather was so nice outside, I had to visit the National Museum of Musical Instruments. As a student, Enti was only 1 zloty, which is super cheap and totally worth it. I'd like to think I'm a bit of a music nerd, but there was such a large variety of weird and wonderful instruments from different centuries and cultures that I'd never seen or heard of before. I couldn't figure out whose hand this was, and I found it a bit odd, so if anyone recognises it, please let me know. These even had faces on them. Very disturbing. The Imperial Castle, also now known as the Culture Centre. Unfortunately, the front is being renovated, but it was still impressive. Across the road was the Poznan Philharmonic Hall, where many concerts are held for the local symphony orchestra, opera, university, and chamber musicians. Surrounding the hall is the College of Music. There was then a sudden downpour of rain that came from absolutely nowhere. There was even flash flooding. This sucks. This really sucks. The rain cleared and I raced off to the royal castle, hoping to catch a pretty sunset. If only I'd made it here earlier, I could have used the bad weather to my advantage to explore the museum first. But it is what it is, and I was able to get the lift to the observation deck, where I spent at least half an hour watching the sky change colour. I didn't realise I wasn't actually at the top yet. For half an hour, I was downstairs watching the sunset, but I've now found the top. There are a lot of royal things in the royal castle. The basement was full of crown jewels. The next level up, there were lots of shiny things and a very funky looking piano. The museum is also home for the applied arts. These were pretty funky too. Old Market Square was buzzing even more at night. I decided to treat myself to a fancy dinner where I had a swordfish steak with gnocchi. I felt like I was eating like a queen. So unfortunately for me, I've kind of just figured out that Poznan is somewhat best known for its nightlife. I'm not a night person. It is now almost 8:30. I've done 40,000 steps and I'm ready for bed, which is a bit of a shame. People are hitting the bars, doing exciting things. I'm ready to go home. Actually, I lied about just finding out that it's known for its nightlife. I think I figured that out at about 9:30 this morning when there was still no places open for breakfast. On my way home, I walked past the Poznan Cathedral once more, hoping maybe it looked pretty and lit up at night. Instead, it seemed most of the action was happening at the clubs. That was my cue to go to bed. Okay, I look very tired, don't I? Currently walking to Parkrun, and Max has taken me away that I probably wouldn't have expected. It looks like there's a bit of a treasure hunt happening. I then made it to Parkrun, my first one in Poland where no one spoke English. It was an easy, flat course through the forest, a little bit out of the city of Poznan. Thankfully, it was well marked too. At the finish line, there were heaps of goodies from homemade muffins and cookies to fresh fruit. Everyone was so lovely even though I struggled to communicate with them. Funnily, everyone seemed quite fascinated by me. As Poznan isn't much of a tourist destination, I can't imagine they get too many Aussies visiting. I felt like a bit of an alien at times as they looked at me strangely and the young boy poked at me as if I wasn't even real. He was very excited to make me a cup of tea, which I happily accepted before my trip to the airport. On the flight home, I pondered on all the awesome things I'd done and realised that just a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have had the courage to book the plane ticket by myself, let alone travel and do all the things without anyone else's approval or guidance. I was very pleased with how I spent my day in Poznan, and I don't think I would have done it any other way. So for that reason, I gave myself a pat on the back. While I was gone, Denmark was hit with a lot of rain. It took longer to get home because the roads were flooded, but I arrived safely, happily, and healthy. That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed coming with me for a short trip to Poznan. Stay tuned for next time where I'll have many more exciting places and people to introduce you to. See ya!